This is Common Knowledge, a Magic the Gathering podcast about improving at the game with a focus on pauper play. It's not about the cost, it's about the knowledge. Welcome to Common Knowledge. Here are your hosts, Brandon Clark and Lobbert. Enjoy this week's episode of Common Knowledge.
Hey everybody, welcome to episode 17 of the Common Knowledge podcast. I'm your host, Brandon Clark, and joined with me is the illustrious Sean the Lobbert.
I always wonder what you're going to say during that intro.
So when I had Raphael as my co-host, every week I was going to try to say, what's that word for when sentences use the same letter?
Alliteration?
Alliteration. I wanted to say illiteracy, and I was like, but that means illiterate.
Yeah, I can actually write and read both, actually.
Wow. Yeah. But when I had Raphael as my co-host, I wanted to do some like alliteration with like Popper. So every week I wanted to call him something different, like the Popper Powerhouse, the Popper Prince, the Popper Paladin. And then you came, and I was like, I'm going to do something different. So that's why I just come up with a fun adjective to describe your personality.
I like it. It's nice.
Yeah. You're a nice guy. Anyway, shout out to our sponsors, puremtgo.com. Go check them out for deck lists, articles. If you want to start writing Magic articles, go ahead, write an article, submit it there. You can do all that from the homepage. We'll kind of guide you through the steps. Shout out again to all our wonderful patrons who support the show. We appreciate everything you guys do. And frankly, it's just really humbling, right?
Oh, yeah.
That someone cares enough about what I have to say. It makes me feel gratified, like in what I'm doing, but then it also like makes me want to try to be better, try to give you guys awesome content. So,
yeah,
it's
not to say that if we didn't have any patrons, I wouldn't do this because,
right.
But it's a huge portion of my week because, like, we had to do the last episode in 2 segments, and so I had to hurry and get it edited so that I don't have 2 episodes stacking up on me.
Yeah.
But I like making a good finished product, and that's why I do it.
For sure. I think that maybe wording it as it makes me want to do better. Yeah, in that sense, like I'm still going to try to make a quality show for you guys, whether you pay me money or not. But it just is sort of like fulfilling, right? That like, hey, what I'm doing, people appreciate it, and that feels good.
I've always had an easier time. Like, if I'm doing something for myself, I don't mind abusing myself and just not doing it. Like, I'll not do my dishes for a week, but then if it's for someone else, I'll get right on it. Like, if I owe somebody else, and like, the patrons just, I'm like, oh, like I can't. Like, maybe I want to skip a week. No. I owe this to them.
Cool. Anyway, check out the other podcasts on the constructed criticism. Yeah, those other podcasts. Go listen to them. They're good. All right. Well, should we just dive right into the show?
Absolutely. I'm all for it.
Cool. Well, let's start with what are we playing?
You go first this week.
I go first this week. Okay. I didn't really play any Popper.
Oh, any Magic?
I played 1 game. No, I played 2 matches of a Modern League with Blue Red Storm. And that's all I had time for. Yeah. I started night school. And so my weekdays are pretty much go to work, come home, try to catch up on some sleep really quick, go to school, get home from school about 11:30, go to bed, wake up at 4:30, and go to work.
Yeah, I've found just living and trying to go to school. If I'm working and going to school, I find it impossible, but I have a really low threshold for that kind of stuff. Like if the next time I know I'm going to go back to school, the next time I do, Plan is just basically get myself financially stable, take out a massive loan, because I just know it doesn't work for me otherwise. So good on you. That's huge.
Yeah. Well, my program's really short, so, and it's not even like difficult. Like, I'm in culinary school for you listeners, so I basically just mess around in the kitchen all night, and it's a blast.
Yeah, and you get to eat food, right?
Yeah, delicious food. Delicious food. I think I posted some of the bread I baked on Twitter, but I usually post everything on Instagram that I cook.
It's not cooking, that's baking.
Cooking and baking. Yeah, you got me. All right, well, did you play any Popper?
Yeah, I kind of switched gears. Like at the end of the last episode, I was working on those Blastoderm brews. They seem less promising than I was hoping, but I'm kind of waiting for some Dominaria cards to come out because I think those will help a lot to smooth out how the deck works. So I kind of switched gears, and I'm playing this Emerge brew, which I've played against Brandon, and he hates it.
It's dumb.
It's playing a 4 of Stormbound Geist in the main, and I like if you look at the meta right now, that's what we're going to be doing this podcast. It has Stormbound Geist has a good matchup against the top 50% of the meta. So I thought there was potential there, and it's actually working. I can't wait to like finish it up and do a video on it.
Yeah, and you get a ton of value out of the Geist.
Oh yeah.
Like even as just a standalone beater, it's great. But then when you pair it with the Wretched Griff that you're emerging, it's stupid. Because now I have to kill a 3/3 and a 3/4 that drew you a card.
Yeah.
Sheesh, get out of town.
A 3/4 with flying pretty much outclasses the whole format. And
yeah,
if I
and it draws you a card.
Like, oh yeah.
Oh.
The payoff of the deck is Rush of Knowledge, which is just draw a
really
card
dumb.
for the highest converted mana cost permanent you control. Hopefully that's Wretched Griff and I draw 7, or at the very worst.
Yeah, or it's 4 and you just do it in the same turn that you cast your free guy.
Oh yeah, like I'm playing Sky Shroud Cutter, which if you have a forest, you can let the opponent gain 5 life to cast him for free. And he costs 4 mana and he's a 2/2. It's like a lot of the time you can like sneak that guy out. It makes Wretched Griff cost 2, or you just sneak that guy out and then jam your Rush of Knowledge, and they're not ready for that.
So is Wretched Griff's Emerge 5 in a blue or 6 in a blue?
5 in a blue. 5 in a blue. So
so you can make Wretched Griff as early as turn 2.
Yeah, I do.
That's so dumb.
I can attack with Sky Shroud, and then I can play my Wretched Griff. 5 life is huge. It takes me forever to kill people, but it's been working.
That's true. There have been games where you just you let me gain like 20 life in one turn.
Yeah, usually when I draw 7 cards, I'm like, well, I don't want to discard. Just jam all these guys on the field. So it's got some neat synergies, and after last week's episode, I'm just jamming more and more cantrips in it, and it's just getting better.
Yeah, I think it's way fun. I think that when we get our rears in gear and start doing our Patreon incentives, rewards, whatever we want to call them, this deck needs to be the first one we do. Like, I think the listeners just have a blast seeing you doing all these crazy things and then just watching me just getting unreasonably angry.
I'm excited for it.
I'm not.
Are we ready to move on to the card of the week?
Yeah, I think so. I think we've got a really good card this week. It is Flaring Pain. So for you at home, Flaring Pain is a 1 and a red instant. It says damage can't be prevented this turn, and it has flashback for a single red. So pretty simple, pretty straightforward, right?
Yeah. It's basically the format's answer to fog effects. in other formats, fogs don't really matter as much as they do in Pauper. They're non-existent in the other formats. Like, who would really care about a fog? It's, you know, like, one of the first things you learn in Magic is fog is bad. Because, yeah, you're buying a turn, but that's card disadvantage. You're not actually solving any problems if you draw it early. Like, but in Pauper, we make really great use of those, and sometimes you can just get fogged eternally out of the game. So our answer is Flaring Pain. So two of the big cards that you're trying to play that against are Moment's Peace and Prismatic Strands. Both of those cards, interestingly enough, also have flashback. So this having flashback matches up really well, and it's also cheaper than both of those cards.
I really do like, though, how Flaring Pain sort of, I don't know, it's sort of just like epitomizes the balance of this format, you know? Like some of these bigger decks have a really hard time dealing with the aggressive aggro decks. And so they need their Moments Pieces, their Prismatic Strands to, you know, buy them those turns they need to set up. Because a lot of these decks set up with their mana bases, like Tron. And so it can afford to Moments Piece while it's still making its land drops, and it's still progressing its board plan. Whereas, like you said, in most formats, it's like they fogged, and it's like, well, you just spent your mana on fog and not something else, and I still have lethal. Well, these Tron decks are setting up by building up this mana base, and then their fogs help them get to that bridge into that late game, where they can start handling your board. And so that's sort of how those decks handle these super aggressive decks that are otherwise very difficult matchups. And then Flaring Pain is sort of the balance to that helps these aggressive decks fight through these fog effects. And so I don't know. There's this nice balance there between all these cards.
Like another reason why we don't see, why Flaring Pain is the card of choice is we really do just want Skullcrack. If we had Skullcrack, I don't know if we'd be playing Flaring Pain. This is like, I didn't do my research on this, but this might be the only counter fog card we have at all. But it's a really good one to have. I've been playing it, and somebody will like fog me, and I'll be able to cast Flaring Pain. They'll counter it, and then I'll just go ahead and flash it back. I don't know if they were just hoping, like, they just have to counter it, hoping that I'll not flash it back or something. But I've also like dumped it in the graveyard.
So do you think that Skullcrack would be played over Flaring Pain? Because I feel like the flashback makes it better than the deal 3 damage.
It depends on the deck is what I want to say. If you're talking about, like, is it Blitz, red deck wins, like any of the already red decks, or Burn, especially Burn, of course they would just play Skullcrack. But the decks that aren't trying to burn out their opponent, they're just trying to make their final attack finally be lethal. Because most of these sometimes you see it out of Boggles and Elves, because they'll assemble this huge board state, and then their win con is, you know, attacking with one guy or tapping their Timberwatch Elf and getting in. And if that just doesn't work repeatedly, like tapping your Timberwatch it leaves you vulnerable sometimes. So they can just play Flaring Pain. Like, the other alternative is they just use a burn spell, like the raid. I don't remember what it's called. It's like 1 red, do a damage for each creature you control to your opponent. And sometimes they play that, but the flashback on Flaring Pain means that they get another shot at it if it's countered.
Okay. So I was going to make a comment on just like minding, I don't know, just being conscious of when you're trying to prevent damage and cast Flaring Pain in the same turn. I don't know if that's ever relevant, but also I just read Prismatic Strands, and that doesn't really apply.
Oh, because
unless your source is... No, I don't know. Never mind. I don't think it's ever relevant, right? Like I don't know that I can ever conceive a turn where you need to prevent damage and then Flaring Pain.
If you're trying to, like, I don't know, I don't know if it's almost never going to come up.
Well, that's all I got to talk about for this. So
same.
Okay, well that was our card of the week, Flaring Pain. I think it's a pretty interesting card just because it seems very intuitive, but I don't know, the play on this card I think is unique. Because I don't think it's necessarily a card that you can always you always just bring in, right? Like it's in your sideboard, but it's not always something you bring in.
Yeah.
You bring it in primarily against these fog effects, but then there are other scenarios where, like, if you feel like the matchup comes down to a race, like maybe you want Flaring Pain to counter their Prismatic Strands if you think that they have those, you know?
One of the reasons I wanted to make this the card of the week is because when you're new to the format, you're not expecting Flaring Pain out of the sideboard of Boggles, which is a green-white deck, but it is in there, so...
Yeah, and Elves is mono green, but they have the ability to make all 5 colors of mana, so they can do all sorts of shenanigans. All right, card of the week. Let's move on to our power rankings.
First up, we have, with 71 points, 21% of the format, Scred Delver! Yeah. I was expecting Scred Delver to be not lower on the list, but have less points than this.
No, I'm expecting it to be low on the list for April, because so far April has been rough, but March still had quite a few Delver decks in the top 8. I think what I say, Scred Delver had 10 top 8 finishes and 27 overall top 32 finishes, giving it 21% of the top 32 finishes for the month of March.
Yeah, so we're going to 21% watch in March, but I am expecting this number to go lower.
I think it will, just based on the Pauper Challenge breakdowns that we've had so far. We've seen very, very little Delver.
They could make up all their points in just being Legion in not the top 8, but the bottom 32-ish.
Yeah. They're still the most popular deck by a wide margin, so I imagine that what we're going to see is we're going to see Scred Delver in second place and Boros Monarch in first place. That's what I think we're going to see for April when we do power rankings next month. Because Scred Delver still seems to be the most popular deck. It's the deck that has the most top 32 finishes out of any other deck. The only one that comes close is Boros Monarch. Boros Monarch had 24 top 32 finishes last month, and Scred Delver was 27.
So it's closing that gap. So, like, Boros Monarch has 61 points to Scred Delver's 71, and it was 18, almost 19% of the format instead of Scred Delver's 21. So comparing this to the last Power Rankings episode, Boros Monarch has gotten more powerful or more popular, and it's closing that gap, because the last gap was Scred Delver had double what the closest high was which was also Boros Monarch. So I think we are adjusting, and that's healthy.
Yeah. I want to look. So Boros Monarch had 1, 2, 3, 4. Boros Monarch only had 4 top 8 finishes last month. And the rest of it was all top 32 finishes. And so I think it's less that Boros Monarch is performing really well, and more that people are just picking it up. Because I think that there's still a lot of bad matchups for Boros Monarch in the format. It just does reasonably well against Skred Delver. I don't want to say so well, but it's very close to like 50-50, and it's skewed in favor of probably the better player.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that there are also just a lot of really good Monarch players out there.
Yeah, but these are, I think, the best two decks right now. Mm-hmm. Like it's really a battle between these two for first, and then the rest is like not really.
The rest is just, yeah, it's kind of like, yeah, it's just these two decks are just so far out in the front, and then everything else is just sort of trailing behind it. And personally, I think that's just because of the existence of Skred Delver.
Yeah.
I think that if Blue-Red Delver didn't exist, Boros Monarch would be the best deck, but it wouldn't be 18% of the format best deck.
Huh.
I think that like it would be closer to like the 12% range, and there would just be everything else would just be more even.
You know, that's an interesting question of would Boros Monarch be the best deck? Because I think it's the one with the best matchup against Skred Delver, or one of the best matchups. I can't think of a one with a better matchup. So I think this is kind of like best deck. Second best deck is the one that beats the best deck.
Yeah, but I think that Boros Monarch just on its own is a good deck.
Yeah.
You know, I've said it before, I think it's the Jund of the format. You know, it doesn't have a lot of super bad matchups. It has a few matchups that are tough for it to beat. Like I think Elves comes to the forefront of my mind, and probably Boggles. I've never played the matchup, but I would assume that it's not good.
Yeah.
I mean, it kind of comes down to like you have to race with your prismatic strands.
Yeah.
And so
the electrickeries really they help, and they do have access to like blowing up enchantments, but not to the extent that they need.
Yeah, and you can't always get an electrickery in on time.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if you're on the play, or you're on the draw and they play a Boggle on turn 1, you have to spend your electrickery on turn 1, and then they just untap and play another hexproof creature and put an enchantment on it. You know? So you slowed them down a little bit, but I don't know. But anyway, Boros Monarch just, I think, has a lot of 50-50 matchups across the board, with the exception of a few. And I think that like you take Skred Delver out of the equation, Boros Monarch becomes less popular because it doesn't have that deck to try to feed on anymore. But I think it's still very good. And maybe it's not the best deck anymore. Maybe we see something like Blue-Black Alchemy or like Marasa Tron take that seat.
Or Tribe.
I
could see Tribe doing it.
Oh my gosh, yeah. Ooh. Without Skred to kind of hold it down, Tribe might just be insane.
That's kind of what I'm thinking, because they've only got like
that's not really a world I want to live in either.
No, I think we could adjust to that. Like,
it's probably easier to adjust to than Delver is.
I want to say so. It's not that bad. It's more easily hateable, but I dread playing against Tribe. Like,
yeah, it's one of those, you're on the edge of your seat. Like, am I dead? Am I dead? Am I dead? You're probably dead.
Like, Blue-Black Alchemy, I love playing against with almost everything I play. And Skred Delver, I usually play I hate Delver decks. I play a lot of, like, do 2 damage, or, like, do a very low amount of damage repeatably. And so I hold my own against Skred Delver, and I think it's very fun. But then, like, Tribe, I'm just like, oh, how fast is my clock? Oh, very slow. Oh, boy.
What about like Mono Blue Delver? Where do you think that falls when Skred goes away? Or if it ever goes away as the best deck? Do you think Blue Delver... Because I know Blue Delver was sort of the deck to beat for a while too, until Scred sort of came into existence.
Yeah, I think Boros Monarch still has a good matchup against Mono Blue Delver.
Even though Blue Delver has the golem, the
No,
Spire Golem.
I don't think they care so much about the golem. Like,
I guess it just bumps with Core Skyfisher, so
it either bumps with Core Skyfisher, and then they have, I guess, the 4 Galv Blasts and the Journeys. Like, you're not going to find them always.
The Galvanic Blast and the Journeys sort of handle that issue, and they only ever have 2 to 3, so you have more than enough answers to it.
The sideboard out of Mono Blue Delver against Boros Monarch, they don't have the Gorilla Shamans, which can really hamstring it.
Fairly weak.
They have the Hydroblasts, which can really protect those Spire Golems and things, and I can see them running away with some games. Like, I wouldn't say it's like the matchup's abysmal or like so much worse, but I do think it's not as good as Scred Delver. That's speculation and more just like me trying to logic through it. Like, I don't know based on experience, but
yeah,
I don't think I think Blue Delver would be a respectable, but not
the top.
Like, it would be top 3. That's where I want to say I would put it, and I can't really refine it more than that.
Okay. All right. Well, let's just keep trucking through. So we covered Boros Monarch as second place, 61 points. Third place is Blue Black Alchemy with 36 points. Not really a lot to say about this deck. I think the only innovation that it's had recently, and I say that lightly, is it's cut Exclude and is now playing Soul Manipulations.
Yeah.
That wasn't very recent either. That's sort of been technology for the last couple months.
I like having... If Blue Black Alchemy was our leader, I'd be fine with that. That would be... Like, even if it was by a wide margin, like, you can game against that deck.
Mm-hmm.
I like seeing Blue Black Alchemy anytime.
Okay. So fourth place on 25 points, we have Tribe Combo.
Deck of the month, in my opinion.
Yeah. I think that all it took was LSV to make a video and everyone's on the Tribe train.
Yeah.
But I also think that, like, so something that we don't get in Pauper that other formats get is we don't get to see top players playing the decks optimally. You know, we have our streamers, and not to say anything bad about the streamers who play Pauper and the people who make Pauper videos. They're great players. They are not Luis Scott Vargas. You know, he's one of the all-time greats. He is better than you.
I will agree that... I'll let you finish your point. Sorry.
Yeah, well, I guess just my point was, it's very cool to see a player of that caliber play one of these decks, because we get to see things that maybe we hadn't seen before, and we get to get into the mind of a great player when they're piloting the deck. And that's something that we can miss when we're just playing it ourselves or watching someone else play it. Seeing these decks played by high caliber players is just so much more insightful than it is otherwise. So it's sort of a special treat.
Yeah, we have really high caliber players that are streamers, but not to the extent.
Yeah,
like they're not they tend to be good brewers more often, or very niche. Like, I am the best at whatever. Like, the Maverick Girl comes to mind. Like, she is the elf player. She plays elves. She plays it really well. That's her thing. Like, you don't just have a Spike coming in here and being like, what's the absolute best thing? I'm going to be the best at it, since I'm already starting way above where all of you are, because I just am good. Like, yeah. And it's just a treat when somebody comes in that's super good and is good at the deck. Because we've had really great players come in not know the format or just like cursory study of it and then play a deck and they're like, this is stupid. Like, what's going on here? And I just cringe.
I guess I've never seen this. Examples of this.
I can't. One, I don't want to name names, and second, I can't. But I know that I've seen it, where just someone will just dip their toe into Pauper, and they don't know what's going on, and so it takes away from what I want, which is best people playing the best decks. Show me what that can be.
Okay. So anyway, yeah, Tribe combo. That's a really good deck, and I think it just kind of blew up in popularity thanks to Luis.
I totally want to see what the numbers are next month for Tribe. Like,
yeah.
What if like we just get Tribe finishes from now until the end of the month, and it's just Tribe 80 points. Tribe. That would just tickle me.
Oh man, that would be kind of funny. So let's go 5th place. 19 points is Mono Blue Delver. 18 points we have Marasa Tron. And I still sort of, when I say Marasa Tron, I'm talking about Dinarova Horror Tron, Pulsar Marasa Tron.
Yeah.
If they're different, then I've named them differently. But Marasa Tron, Pulsar Marasa with Dinarova Horror or without, I kind of classify as the same deck. Like, at their core, they're all Mnemonic Wall, Ghostly Flicker decks.
If you can get through the first 17 turns of a game and still not know which one you're playing against, they're basically the same deck, right?
Yeah, they're the same deck as far as I'm concerned. Sometimes they don't have Pulsar Marasa. Sometimes they don't have Dinarova Horror. Sometimes they have both. I classify these decks as Mnemonic Wall, Ghostly Flicker decks.
Yeah, it's just a slight change of toolbox. Like, them playing Exclude or not doesn't make them a different kind of Dinrovatron.
Right. So that was 18 points. Next, in 7th place, we 7th place on 17 points. We have Boggles.
Yeah, I feel like for some reason Boggles and Marasatron kind of go together in my mind. I don't know why, but they kind of feel glued together. Of just like,
when Marasatron does well, Boggles also does well.
Maybe it would be inverse of like, if Tron's really good, Boggles wouldn't do so hot because it fogs Boggles out of the games a lot of the time. But maybe it's just whenever I see someone playing Tron, they play against Boggles and vice versa. Like, I don't know.
Well,
there's nothing relevant about that, but
I kind of feel like Boggles probably has a good matchup with a lot of Marasatrons, not so good matchups. And Marasatron, I imagine, has a decent matchup with Boggles. So maybe that's sort of where we're seeing it, is Boggles eats up all of the bad matches for Tron, and then Tron just beats the Boggles. Maybe.
I am surprised that Boggles doesn't do better, to be honest. Like, it's such a straightforward plan that's hard to interact with.
I think it's just not popular. You know, because it's not like the deck posts result it's not like there are a lot of people playing the deck and it's just not posting results. I think it's the inverse. There's just not a lot of people playing the deck, but the people who do post results. So there were a total of maybe posting results isn't the right word either, because they only had one top 8 with the deck. But in total, there were 8 Boggles decks that made top 32 last month.
Yeah,
there's not a lot of them being played, and I guess they're still not having very high finishes either. Like, I mean, a top 32 is still a decent finish, right? In a Pauper Challenge, you know. I mean, I've never looked, but how big do those tournaments get? Aren't they in the like 500 person range or something?
Oh, I don't want to say that.
Smaller than that?
I want to.
Bigger?
I don't even know where I would get the numbers on that, but I want to say it's
I
like
guess I don't know either. I
70
just kind of
to 100. I'll try to get some numbers next
is that
time.
it? Huh. I for some reason I was expecting them to have a much higher.
No, it's
I've never looked. So yeah, I don't know.
It's
Probably
that they
right.
take so much of the day.
Yeah.
But I think they're
You've got to basically, if you want to play a challenge, you've got to window out your entire day, or at least your entire morning and late afternoon, or whatever time it starts.
Aren't they
for you.
usually like 8 rounds? And couldn't we figure
And
out how
then-
many players there are based on that? I don't know if I want to do the math. But yeah, Boggles would kind of be my pick of. Maybe I don't see a reason why Boggles wouldn't be able to do better. Like, I think that has a lot of potential if you want to pick up one of these decks.
Yeah, I mean, one of the top decks in the format plays a fog, and another relevant deck in the format also just plays infinite fogs. So I could see that sort of being an issue for the deck. But
yeah, it is an issue, but it has an answer. Like, it has Flaring Pain.
Sure. Yeah. So, yeah, I don't know. I think maybe it also is just that it's not very popular. It just might not be something that people want to play.
I might give it a spin. I own that deck, so I might give that a spin this week.
I think it's really good. All right, well, let's 9th place. Is it? 9th place is where we're at. Okay, 14 points. Stompy.
This is 8th place.
8th place. Stompy.
I think it's down. It's definitely down here. I think because of the relevance of Augur of Bolas. It's hard to play aggro. This is our first aggro deck, and it made the top 8. But
you wouldn't. I guess Boggles is aggro combo. Tribe is combo.
Yeah,
I would say a tribe is just more combo than anything
it's
else.
100% combo.
Yeah. Boros Monarch, that's pretty mid-range.
Definitely.
Scred and Blue Red Delver sort of fall into Scred and Blue Delver sort of fall into the camp of aggro tempo.
Yeah,
but
is tempo
Stompy,
aggro? I don't think so.
Well, that's why I'm not saying they're the same thing. I'm saying they're different things, but when you look at the Venn diagram of all the archetypes, these two decks fall in the middle of tempo and aggro, right?
Yeah, I think it's just hard to get through with non-flyers.
Yeah.
Pretty much everything has flyers down to Boggles and Stompy. And they kind of have flyers in... What's the card you hate? Silhana Ledgewalker? Both of them play Ledgewalker just because right now the ground is so gummed up. You just can't win with a ground game.
No, I think that Augur of Bolas has really warped the way an aggro deck can live in this format. It just is incredibly difficult for a deck to try to attack with creatures when your opponent's playing a 1/3 for 2 mana that replaces itself.
Yeah, and it probably
that's just a losing battle.
It finds it something that's probably gonna 2-for-1 your Rancor target, because usually
unless it's Ledgewalker, but that's why that card gets played. Okay, yeah. Overall, I'm not high on this deck in this format. I don't think it's a great place to be. I think it's just an incredibly hostile environment for this deck. I mean, I think it still can get by on its explosive starts. Just some of those Burning Tree starts that are just stupid hard to beat. Plus, you can always just fall back onto I played a Silhana Ledgewalker on turn 2, and then I put Elephant Guide on it and killed my opponent. Like,
Yeah, that works.
yeah. So I mean, it just does have some I win draws, but those are, I think, spread few and far between. And for the most part, this just seems like a tough time to want to be playing this deck.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. So ninth place, 11 points, burn. Nothing.
Yeah, it's just burn.
I don't know. Just burn. Just burn.
It's not really moving up or down. Burn's just always like low middle.
Yeah. It's something that's there, something to be aware of. It's not a huge player in the format, but it is there, and you'll play against it. Next, we have 10th place on 7 points is Elves.
This has gone down significantly.
Yeah, and I'm kind of curious what is really holding this deck back besides, like, I think that Scred Delver does decently against it just with the amount of burn it has, and Augur Bolus. Augur Bolus is probably the answer.
No,
Maybe.
If I had to bet, I think it's that elves exploded for a while, and people had to change their sideboard plan, and they did. So
And there's just a lot more electricaries and
oh yeah,
and things of the nature running around.
yeah. It's just I think it's that card. It's just we have tons of electricaries, and I would expect that when elves gets worse, that Stompy gets better, because that was one of its like horrendous matchups.
Yeah.
But it doesn't look like it has adjusted there yet. It might be a little bit delayed, so Stompy could get better.
I don't know that Elves. I mean, yeah, I think Elves is Stompy's worst matchup, but I'm looking at all the rest of the top decks, and I'm still just not seeing things I want to see if I'm playing Stompy.
Yeah.
Besides like the mono blue Delver, like I don't necessarily want to play against Scred Delver. I
It
don't
does
think I
have
want
a
to play
good.
against Boros Monarch.
I think you actually don't care about Boros Monarch. I think you're kind of fine. That might be
Really?
a dumb thing to say,
I just feel
but
like with the amount of burn that Boros Monarch has, in conjunction with cards like Core Skyfisher, Boros Monarch has a very good. It does a very good job of gumming up the ground, and then it has enough disruption that unless you have Solana Ledgewalker, like your Raincores and your Elephant Guides aren't going to be very good.
so
But I don't know. You do have Vines of the Vastwood to kind of protect your creatures, as well as. Do they still play Howl of the Night Pack?
yes,
Did they ever play that? They do.
they do.
Okay, I'm
Hunger
not
of the
crazy.
Hell Pack.
So that's good against burn as well.
But what? So playing against a lot of Stompy, and I've played against a ton of Stompy. Oh gosh, I got tired of seeing it for a while. Now I'm like, oh, you have no idea, Brandon. No idea. So
I don't know. I don't know. Tell me.
one of the basically one of the premises of the deck is it punishes you for trying to kill their creatures. You kill a creature, well, this one over here is now 5/5 because I just hungered it, and now I untap. Or you can't fight him in combat because, of course, you fear Vines of the Vastwood, and like even if you kill something with Rancor on it, unless you're like doing it on the stack, and even then it's like, okay, pre-combat, Rancor my guy, and you're like looking at your bolt, and you're thinking about Vines, and it gets really rough in that way. So that's why I would say that Monarch maybe doesn't want to see Stompy, because there are those dirtily draws, and a 2/3 or a 2/2 doesn't really stop them, right?
Yeah, but I think those are the draws that nothing stops. Like those are sort of the draws I was talking about with this deck. That it doesn't matter what you're playing. I mean, I think short of probably elves, you know.
And even
But
if they
I
get an
think
elephant
otherwise-
guide, if they get an elephant guide on a 2/2, they put it on Nettle Sentinel because you had to dirtle and draw some cards, you ran out of removal, or something like that. Now you're just so far
Yeah, that
behind.
does kill you.
Like,
I don't know. I think it's close. I think it's one of those 50-50 matchups again, where a lot of it just comes down to the draw and the pilot. But I could see Stompy being the slight favorite just because Boros Monarch doesn't ever really do anything exciting. You know, it's not one of those flashy decks. And Stompy is. And Stompy could just have that flashy nut draw and you just don't beat it. But then otherwise, it's a very close matchup, I think. But I could just be wrong. I've never played Stompy, and I haven't played enough Monarch, and I certainly haven't played the matchup. So I'm kind of just fabricating all of this in my head how I think it should go.
Yeah, that's kind of what we have to do, because I try to play a lot of the different decks, but playing every deck against every other deck just is not something I have time for. I like to watch as much as I can video-wise, but like I said earlier, a lot of the content made for Pauper is brews, and that gives you almost no relevant data.
Yeah.
Like, I know that Scred Delver beats almost every brew.
Ha, Sean with the hot takes here on the Common Knowledge.
So that was a good discussion about elves, wasn't it?
Is that what we were talking about?
It was. So now we're on 11th place.
We were talking about Stompy.
I switched.
Or were we talking about Boros Monarch?
We
Or were we talking about Scred Delver? Anyway.
we were talking about how elves went down, and I thought Stompy would go up.
Yeah. Let's just keep trucking on. We got 2 more ranks and a lot of decks. So in 11th place, all on 4 points, we have Graintron, Blue Graintron, Is It Blitz, Affinity, and Black Land Destruction. So Mono Graintron just has Fangren Marauder, and the Blue Graintron list had Fangren Marauder, Muldrifter, and I don't think it had Mnemonic Wall in it, or Ghostly Flicker. It was just Fangren Marauder. It was basically just the mono green deck, and it added blue for primarily Muldrifter, if I'm remembering correctly. I wish I would have taken better notes on it, because it was an interesting deck list.
That sounds like a return to form, like how Tron was back in the day.
In days of yore.
Yeah, it was like Rugtron, and it was just like Firebolts, maybe like a Flame Slash. And I loved that, because you could easily be at like 100 life just based off of like having 2 Fangren Marauders and popping a couple eggs.
Yeah.
That was like the second deck I ever built. But isn't it kind of disappointing that we're now in a world where Is It Blitz and Affinity, who've battled to be like what decks 1 through 4 a couple of times, like
are now
year or more
at the
ago,
very bottom of the barrel.
and same with Blue Green Tron, we're comparing those to Black Land Destruction. Like, that's the level we're at.
Yeah. I think that Is It Blitz just lacks the consistency and durability that Tribe has.
Yeah.
And Affinity just is falling prey to the fact that Boros Monarch exists, and Gorilla Shaman is great against Boros Monarch, so it's just naturally Affinity is getting hated out of this format. Plus, there's so many lightning bolts and screds running around that, like, that's never a good place to be when you're Affinity anyway.
Yeah, Counterspell's a tough cookie for Affinity to deal with, since they are trying to fling.
Yeah, and a lot of the Affinity decks I've seen, I feel like have started to kind of go off of the fling plan. Like, they still have it, but you don't try to go for that as much anymore. You try to just be the go wide kind of a deck.
That's like the game plan 1, but then we were supposed to have this looming game plan of the game plan 2. Now it's like, all right, I'm prepared for that other one. Let's just stop playing 1.
Yeah. It's just, I think, a rough time to want to be Affinity in.
But I do think that this is the level 11 green Tron, blue green Tron, Blitz, Affinity, Land Destruction. Here and below are decks that you almost don't have to think about when building a deck, or like they're just not relevant, but they placed.
Yeah, I mean, when we say they're not relevant, we don't mean that disregard them, they're crap decks. It just means that if you're playing in a challenge, there's a very high chance that you won't play against Affinity or Black Land Destruction or Green Tron or Is It Blitz. You know, maybe you'll play against these decks once a tournament, maybe twice.
So like
very unlikely though.
I would say this is the point where you say know your interactions, know what you need to bring in, sideboard out.
Just know how to handle the matchup, but
don't build your deck or sideboard against these. Like Affinity is pretty much in the you don't sideboard against it. Like you don't have cards in your sideboard for Affinity. You're better off.
If you're a red deck and you're playing Gorilla Shamans anyway, you're set. You know?
Yeah, but that's for Boros Monarch. Like if you say it's for Affinity.
Yeah, and that's not there for Affinity. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, yeah.
Like you already have those cards, so you don't even need to think about the Affinity. And honestly, Black Land Destruction, I don't know that I would even.
Yeah, what do you even do?
Like that card wouldn't even be on my radar at all. That deck.
Yeah.
I just kind of be like, I guess if I play against it and they have a great draw, I could lose, or otherwise I'll just get out under them and counter one of their land destruction spells or something. I don't know.
I'll draw more land.
Yeah, I'll draw more. They don't have, it's not like a land destruction deck in like Modern that's like I played a land destruction spell on turn 2, and then I played a land destruction spell on turn 3, and then I cast Bloodbraid Elf and cascaded into a Blood Moon, and now you die. They're kind of just like gonna blow up a land and then blow up a land, and then they don't have a fast clock. They don't have a very efficient way of killing you and taking advantage of the fact that they're taking you off of your lands. They don't really capitalize on it.
Yeah, like their opponents could run away with games. Like it's not consistent enough to hit. Like it's top 8'd, but that's going to be so inconsistent, and you'd have to have tons of players playing it that I just don't think. It's just kind of irrelevant-ish.
Yeah, none of these decks. And same with this next set of decks, all on 2 points. So we have Blue-Black Ghostly Flicker, which was just Chittering Rats, Muldrifters, Archaeomancer, Mnemonic Wall, whatever. So that's basically that deck. Ninja Tribe. This was Tireless Tribe combo.
Yeah, with the fairy package.
With the Ninja Fairy package. It was kind of interesting.
I think it's being a little cute.
It.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know that I really like it or think it's necessarily that great, but it was very interesting. So then we have a red-white Tron deck just trying to kill with Kervix Torch. There's red deck wins, blue-green Turbo Fog, wins with Jace's Erasure. And there's Grixis Metalcraft. That's all I can think of for this deck. Holy cow!
Sorry, I dropped something.
That's all I can think of to call this deck is Grixis Metalcraft. So it's got Ghostly Flicker for like all of its creatures, and then it's playing a bunch of artifact lands to turn on Affinity for Thoughtcast. Yeah, turn on Affinity for Thoughtcast, and then it also had Galvanic Blast. So other than that, it was just kind of like Grixis Control. So it was kind of an interesting deck. And then the last deck on the list was White Heroic,
I'm personally happy to see White Heroic going down because I have a lot of the things I play have a hard matchup.
With White Heroic.
Yeah, a 4 toughness creature on turn 1. Like I feel like I play a lot of red, and that's just bad news, bears.
Yeah, that guy's kind of hard to kill.
Kind of easy to block sometimes, unless he has protection from all your creatures.
Yeah, but I don't know. You're just, at the end of the day, you're just chump blocking. Assumedly. Like, you're assuming that it's probably like, I don't know, a 5/9?
Yeah. That hopefully won't get double strike. But all in all, like, down here we've got our red aggro deck that's just kind of dying thanks to, I think, Augur. I think White Heroic kind of suffers from the same thing. Like, you have to get your guy kind of beefy before it does anything. And then, like, if it's a prowess creature, it might not be able to deal with it the next turn. But it's red aggro, heroic, boggles, stompy are our aggro decks, and that's a really small portion of our format. So I would,
it's just aggro is just not pure aggro. Just does not seem very good in this format. It just seems like a really rough time to want to be attacking with creatures.
Yeah.
And I think part of the problem is, too, that, like, aside from Stompy, these other aggro decks, they don't really have, like, super insane games, you know? Like, they don't just, like, fall onto, like, every once in a while I just get free wins off the back of my deck having explosive draws. And Stompy can do that from time to time, and like maybe White Heroic can do that a little better than others, but
I guess Affinity is kind of an aggro deck, yeah. And it's also not doing hot.
Yeah, well, I think it's really just because even if Affinity has an insane start and wins game 1, odds are you're playing against Gorilla Shamans games 2 and 3, and you're just getting hated out. Like, I think that Affinity is the exception, not the rule in this case, just because of how easy it is to sideboard against it. Like, I have this great sideboard card that's just great. Oh, it also means Affinity can't play Magic. It just...
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, like, other than like... So, yeah, Stompy and red deck wins are our only real, I would say, traditional aggro decks. They're not doing amazing. They're not completely out of the format, but then we've got Heroic and Boggles, which are enchantment based, that have their own ways of evasion. Like, I don't know if this even needs to be said, but evasion is super important. Like, it's always been important, and in this format, you're gonna have to block. If you can't block all those flyers that are coming at you, you're going to lose a lot of games.
Yeah. So what's the big takeaway from this power rankings? I think aggro is in a rough place. I think, like you said, evasion is key.
Lots of blue. Be wary of...
Lots of blue.
What's his name?
Lots
Augur
of...
Bolas.
Yeah, lots of Augur Bolas, lots of
removal,
counterspell,
tons of removal,
tons of. I would say situational removal though. So I don't know if there's a way to exploit that with something, but the top decks are all.
What do you mean by situational?
Lightning Bolt, Scred. They're damage based. They're dependent on. Yeah. You know, so those are typically easier to fight against than just your average, you know, destroy target creature. So I don't know if there's a way to try to exploit that. Mutagenic
is like if you're like Blue Delver.
Yeah, we've seen that in the Blue Delver decks. They're on a full 4 mutagenic growths.
Like red aggro is on 4 mutagenic growths from what I've seen. Stompy, I think they've actually strayed away from mutagenic right now, but they're not completely off of it.
They're just mostly on. You mostly just see Vines and Howl and like a couple mutagenics, maybe.
Yeah, but I don't know if maybe it's a little bit new since black control, mono black control is non-existent. It's not on this list at all. That was our major, like, good non-conditional kill spell deck. Other than that, we have blue-black alchemy with them, but we were pretty red-based removal before, and now we're going even further into red removal.
Mm-hmm. Which it is interesting to bring up because I do remember covering Pestilence decks last month's power rankings. There were mono black Pestilence and there was black white Pestilence. They weren't high on the list, but they were on the list.
Mm-hmm. And they're just gone.
Cool. Well, that was the power rankings. Hope that you guys found this insightful and interesting as we did. Let's move on to the Pauper Challenge breakdown, and then we can wrap up the show.
Yeah, and we'll do this kind of quick since we've basically done a metagame analysis all day, but this is the most recent metagame.
Mm-hmm. Yep, these results were posted literally today, so 3 days ago for you listening in future podcast land when Sean gets the podcast posted up.
Yeah.
Boom. So, first place, Marasatron. Second place, Rally Gond. Third place, Red Deck wins. Fourth place, Boros Monarch. Fifth place, Blue Delver. Sixth place, Tireless Tribe. Seventh place, Scred Delver. Eighth place, Scred Delver.
So, I believe that the only reason Rally Gond is on this list is because Methodical is just jamming it over and over, and he's just very good, and he's fantastic with that deck. Like, watching him play and use the match clock and just the speed of his interactions and stuff, like, I think that's just a case of, that's why this is on the list. I don't know if Rally Gond is like a force in this format.
That's picking up steam.
No.
You just think that Methodical plays it well.
Yeah.
It's just good.
Yeah.
Okay.
But then we've got Red Deck wins that hit third place, which is, I wasn't expecting that. That's kind of a surprise, don't you think?
Yeah. It's kind of interesting.
And it's a deck full of, I guess they're all 2/2s, so it can attack pretty nicely into a lot of stuff, and
there's only 12 Augur Boluses in this top 8, so maybe they just, I don't know, they would have had to have played against one of these Augur decks, right?
Yeah, it would have to, and it would have had to have beat one.
Yeah, exactly.
Not to mention what it did before. So maybe one of the solutions to Augur of Bolas is just play higher toughness creatures. One toughness creatures just kind of aren't playable if you're trying to attack right now, like on the ground.
Yeah.
Like, they've been bad for a while. We're sideboarding 3 to 4 Electrickeries in most of our lists. So this could be one of the solutions.
Yeah, just don't play something with 1 toughness. All right. And then Blue Delver. There's nothing stand outish about this Blue Delver deck. Sixth place, we have Tireless Tribe. Oh, I forgot to include Tireless Tribe into the Augur Bolas count. So, but Blue Delver doesn't. This Blue Delver deck's not playing Augur Bolas.
Yeah, I don't think Blue Delver decks.
Yeah, because they're playing Spire Golem instead.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you got the number right.
Yeah, so my number was probably right. So this is just straightforward Tireless Tribe combo.
So it's Tireless Tribe is one of the Augur of Bolas decks, but like red deck wins where like I don't think they're as worried about the Augur of Bolas since they have the plan that you want to have against Tireless Tribe of just kill you fast.
Yeah.
Like,
well, an augur honestly on its own isn't phenomenal against aggro. It blocks, but it doesn't typically eat creatures in combat. It just bumps with them. And so if you can go wide around the augur, then that's a problem for the augur deck. But what makes like Skred Delver a great augur deck against aggro is they're gumming up the ground so that they can just bump with whatever they want to bump with and then kill all your other things, and then they're eventually going wide enough with their own creature base that the extra cards from augur help them pull so far ahead.
Well, yeah, I think augur does a little bit more than that in that it makes it so you can't attack with any of your 1/1s or X1s, and then it'll block one of your like two whatevers, 2X.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's if you have, 2 1/1s and then a couple of 2/2s, it prevents the 1/1s from attacking and one of your 2/2s. So you'd have 4 creatures and only one of them can get in. So that's done so much work by just existing.
Yeah, but I mean, if you look at the red deck, they only have one 1/1 creature. That's Goblin Bushwhacker.
Yeah, and that's worth.
Everything else in the deck is an X2.
Yeah, not to mention they can
yeah.
like they have 1 to 2 on the field, and they can just what is it, Goblin Heel Cutter, and make it so you can't block.
Yeah, so I'm actually looking at this, and from the side of Tribe, I don't know that I want to play against this deck because my augurs don't do a whole lot. Like, they bump with 1 creature and then you take 4 damage, and they do draw you that extra card, so they kind of help you get closer to comboing off. But Tribe is a deck that it can combo off under pressure, but really it needs time to sculpt its game, and this deck doesn't really give it that much time. And it sort of takes advantage of the fact that Augur of Bolas only has 1 power.
It does run a lot of burn spells too.
Yeah, they've got the
like it's usually bolts
2
and
fire
blasts,
4 lightning bolts, and 2 reckless abandon.
Fire blast being free can be a big deal against Tireless Tribe. Like. The leaving up 1 mana, you bolt it when they're like they've already discarded a ton of cards. They use their last card. Look, I got my madness card. Counter it, and you're like Fire Blast, and bam, you've won the game. And because they've had to do it under pressure, their hand's not going to be perfect, and they don't have tons of mana open. So I'm getting bigger on red deck wins. But it still has, like, I want to say it's got a bad matchup against Skred Delver. Red deck wins has a bad matchup against Skred Delver.
I would agree with that.
Like, they can just board in Hydroblast. Like, would you say take out your counter spells? Like, just blue counter spell?
Yeah, I would probably do that. And I would just want creatures and removal. I would want to be able to just handle things on the board and then use my Spell Stutter sprites to counter their derpy little derps.
Swirling Sandstorm, man. Oh
yeah. That's gross. That's gross. Yuck.
That's all I got.
Also, Stormbound Geist is probably good.
What?
Against red, Stormbound Geist?
They don't have flyers?
Oh yeah, I always forget. Never mind.
That's the second most forgotten about ability in Pauper. Number 1?
Yeah, he doesn't block flyers. Or block non-flyers.
Do you know the number 1 most forgotten ability in Pauper?
Tell me.
Birchler Rangers has Morph. Those are my top 2.
I I usually forget that Birchblower Rangers can make any color of mana. I just assume he makes green. You know? Because he's an elf. And then all of a sudden my opponent casts Flaring Pain or something, and I'm just like, what the shice does?
I don't want to say that I don't almost... Like, it's super relevant because they can cast Distant Melody off of it. So I remember it off of that.
I always forget. I don't know. I also don't honestly think I've ever played against elves.
Ew, don't say that.
Maybe I have like once. I don't see it very often.
Weird, I see it all the time.
Huh.
It's scary.
That's not that scary. Just lightning bolt their creatures and spread their creatures and spellstutter sprite their creatures.
Okay, you have a good matchup. But like when you're playing a brew and they've just played 8 guys on turn 3.
You're just like, oh, what do I do? Oh no! Ah, I'm gonna die! Ah, okay! Let's wrap it up. I'm done.
Okay.
Get out of here. All right. So, Sean, where can listeners find you if they want to talk to you on the interwebs?
They can follow me on Twitter at Lobbert8, Lobbert number 8, and on YouTube.
The Ocho.
The Ocho. On Lobbert, or on Lobbert. On Lobbert, I am YouTube. Just
on YouTube?
Just to search for my name.
I just made a pen mark on my playmat that's also my keyboard. I don't know. I have it under my keyboard, and I just colored on it with my pen.
You're a bad person. Where can people find you on Twitter?
At bclark_ck. And you can also follow the podcast at CK Podcast MTG. You can get a hold of us also through email, commonknowledgemtg@gmail.com. And you can support the show on Patreon at patreon.com/commonknowledge. So that's the show. Hope you guys enjoyed it.
Bye.
Adios.